U.S. Customs and Border Protection, also known as CBP, is a branch of the Department of Homeland Security which was set up by the U.S. government to protect the rights of the citizens. It is the right of the people to be protected from harmful elements coming in from foreign countries, such as terrorists, weaponry, and illegal drugs. The Customs and Border Protection takes the responsibility of fulfilling these rights by enforcing rules and regulations on the flow of people and goods into the United States. While its primary mission is to keep terrorists, weapons, and drugs out of the country, it is also responsible for facilitating lawful international trade and legal immigration by enforcing hundreds and thousands of U.S. laws, including drug laws.
Drugs have been in our country since the founding of Jamestown in 1607. Interestingly, some drugs such as tobacco were a major contributor to the growth of the nation's economy. At the time, though, not many acknowledged the potential harm some of these drugs may cause on the person and the society at large. In 1969, when drug consumption and its illicit trafficking increased, drugs became a serious issue in our country. Americans struggled to find policies that would limit the availability of harmful drugs for the common people. In 1970, under the rule of President Richard Nixon, the Comprehensive Drug Abuse Prevention and Control Act of 1970 was signed into federal law, which called for record-keeping of each and every drug exchanged and sold. Title II of this act was the Controlled Substances Act, or CSA, which was the federal U.S. drug policy to help regulate the manufacture, import, possession, usage, and distribution of certain harmful substances and drugs. Although national awareness for illegal drugs had increased, their demand also grew. Individuals found ways to bring in these prohibited substances through foreign countries, and the drug industry had then fallen into the hands of international criminals. The U.S. Customs was given the duty of preventing contrabands and the smuggling of these forbidden drugs.
We can't make the world right, but we should take responsibility in our own actions. If it ruins the world in some way, shape, or form, we should take responsibility and say, hey, we shouldn't allow that. And that's why we have laws. And it's the right of the innocent for anything to put the laws in place.
The first attempt to stop the trafficking of drugs was through a strategy called Operation Intercept, which called for the securing of the U.S.-Mexican border. On March 1, 2003, the CBP was annexed into the United States Department of Homeland Security. It was extremely vital for these agents to monitor all around the U.S. border, since drugs were being rustled through every part of the country. Cocaine is a harmful drug that interferes with the chemical messengers and neurotransmitters of the body. The use of cocaine harms the brain, heart, and one's emotions. It is mainly grown in Colombia, Peru, and Bolivia. It is trafficked through Central America and Mexico and smuggled into America throughout the U.S.-Mexican border. Cannabis, commonly known as marijuana, is produced in Central Asia. It travels east through Russia, then enters Canada and comes into the U.S. through the U.S.-Canadian border. It is also grown in Mexico and trafficked through the U.S.-Mexican border. The side effects are several, including a rapid heartbeat and lack of physical coordination. Opium, which is very similar to marijuana, is cultivated largely in Afghanistan and Pakistan. It is locally known as hashish. It travels west through the Middle East, then Europe, and is rustled into U.S. through the East Coast. According to the Drug Enforcement Administration, in 2010 alone, the number of deaths caused by drugs in the USA was 37,792, including male and female. Most of these deaths were those ranging from ages 15 to 34. Of these drugs, 82.4% were illegally trafficked into the country, marijuana being the cause of most of these deaths. There are multiple methods the CBP utilizes to restrict the entry of illicit drugs into our country. Drug-sniffing dogs, also known as detection dogs, are present at ports of entries in order to locate hidden drugs using their powerful sense of smell. Human personnel are also placed on duties to search imports and baggage for illegal drugs and other unauthorized items. X-ray and gamma-ray machinery are set up at airports and stations. They scan people and baggage and are able to detect metals, foods, and drugs. The CBP operate drones along the U.S. borders. These drones have cameras and motion sensors attached to them, which are programmed to pinpoint any unusual activity in that area, typically drug trafficking. It automatically informs the Border Patrol of this irregular activity, which allows them to take immediate action.
The agency itself has been using drones for a little while. They just have radar. Plane crosses the border and isn't registered, or it doesn't have follow the flight path. But that's what the drone is really looking for. K9's definitely probably, to me, the most effective because it is truly it takes the officer out of it. As long as the officer is just working the dog, to me, K9 is the most effective. We have lots of tools, but the most common method is really just common sense.
There are several success stories where the CBP prevented drugs from illegally entering the country. On November 29, 2011, the U.S. Customs officials discovered a highly sophisticated drug tunnel linking Tijuana, Mexico to San Diego, California. This tunnel consisted of electric rails, ventilation, and a hydraulic lift. 17,000 pounds of marijuana and 325 pounds of cocaine was seized in this operation by the CBP agents. On January 11, 2013, a 16-year-old female pedestrian was crossing the border from Palomas, Mexico, disguised as a student. She was smuggling 3 bundles of marijuana in her backpack. The CBP successfully intercepted these narcotics. A female with 3 kids was busted smuggling drugs at the El Paso port by the CBP on February 17, 2012. CBP officers at the port were searching vehicles waiting in line when drug-sniffing dog Sandy alerted to her car. CBP officers located a hidden compartment in the rear wheel well area of the car. 23.8 pounds of cocaine, 11 bundles were discovered.
Drug trafficking in this country is not just for this country. We have drug traffickers go through this country into other countries. We're actually protecting a big part of the world.
Drugs have caused emotional distress in families due to children getting addicted, leaving parents helpless and destroying numerous families. The actions of the CBP in reducing the flow of drugs into the U.S. has contributed to minimizing the drug availability and, in turn, the number of distressed families.
As a frequent international traveler, I have observed that the CBP officers do an extremely thorough job in ensuring that our borders are well protected. And everyone, including the airline personnel, may be subjected to additional level of screening and question on the goods they are carrying with them. So we as travelers should understand that it is the normal duty of CBP officers to single out individuals now and then. But this is just a process and applies to everybody, and it is because of such processes enforced by the CBP that we, the common citizens, can enjoy security in our country and be assured that our rights and borders are protected from harmful elements.
Each individual has the right to live safely in this country. Homeland Security protects these rights from being violated, and specifically, the CBP patrols our borders to enforce this mission, to protect us from foreign harmful influences, such as illicit drugs. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection holds the responsibility, with great honor, to protect these rights of its people that may be violated by foreign elements through our border.